Thank you, Denise. I don't know what to say. Good evening or good afternoon, or how about good day? We'll start with that. I'm going to play a song that I wrote the first half, on a train ride on the Metro North back from New York City. And the other half I wrote in a hotel room in Milwaukee when I was on tour. It was kind of to appease my future, well now, mother-in-law, because she would pester me like, when are you going to write a song for my daughter? So I wrote this. This is called Settle Down. On a train ride, this boxcar takes forever. Another stop here and wherever all these other people go. It's a good time playing in the city. There's something here within me, just can't wait to get on home. When you're on my mind, now I'm on the roam. I know I'll never be alone. You are the reason why I'm coming back around. You make me want to settle down. Hotel windows, living from the suitcase. Like the folks in this place, or should you miss the ones back home? Miles of highways, some more familiar. I don't remember what the words were, but they always bring me home. When you're on my mind, now I'm on the road. I know I'll never be alone. The reason why I'm coming back around. You make me want to settle down. Oh, just another 100 miles until the borderline. Then we got all this time. Oh, just another few more hours until the day. When you're on my mind, now I'm on the road. I know I'll never be alone. You are the reason why I'm coming back around. You make me want to settle down. You are the reason why I'm coming back around. Make me want to settle down. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Well, I've got you for the next 3 hours. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share a story with you from South Africa. It's by the Ndebele people. It's called The Blind Man Catches a Bird. Once there was a young man, and he fell in love with a young woman. And she had a brother, and her brother was blind. The young man really liked his blind brother-in-law and asked one day if his brother-in-law would join him on the hunt. And so he and the blind man began walking. And while they were walking, the blind man would say, "Listen, there's a bird about to flutter here. Do you hear that big pig in the bush?" And the young man was just amazed at what this blind man could hear, but he could not see. And so finally, they came to a place to put the first trap down, and it was a blind man's trap. But it wasn't just any place. It was just out there in the open. For his own trap, the young man placed his trap in some grasses where the birds would not know that it was a trap. Later that evening, they ate their supper, and they drank and they talked. The next morning, the young man and the blind man went off to see what had happened. As they were nearing the young man's trap, the blind man said, "There's a bird in there. There's a bird in there." And when the young man got to the trap, sure enough, there was a bird. A small bird, but a bird nevertheless. And the young man took his bird and placed it in his pouch. Then they had to go to where the old man's trap was, and again the blind man began to hear a bird, and he said, something's there. And when the young man saw what was there, jealousy arose within his being. It wasn't just any bird. It was a marvelously colored bird. And the young man thought, man, those feathers would make a nice present for my wife. But then he remembered that the blind man also had a wife. The young man took the bird and he substituted his bird for the blind man's bird. And he put the marvelously colored bird in his pouch. When the blind man got the small bird, he stroked its wing, he stroked its breast, and then he slowly put it in his pouch. They began their walk home. They talked. They stopped for lunch underneath the tree. And as they were talking, the young man came up with a question. He said to the blind man, "Why do men fight with each other?" That question had always haunted the young man. The blind man just sat there for the longest time, silence. But as he was thinking, the young man thought, wow, that's deep. And then finally the blind man spoke. People fight because they have done to others what you have done to me. And the young man, his face flushed with shame, he promptly got up and he went to his pouch. He took out the marvelously colored bird and he gave it to the blind man. The blind man felt its wings, felt the breast of the bird. And then he said, "Do you have any other questions for me?" The young man said, "Yes. How do people become friends after they have fought?" The blind man smiled. "They do to others what you've just done to me. That is how they become friends."
I'ma basically break out, bang out with bitter basics and bravery briefly while being both bold and beastly. I brings the bulk of my best fruits I brought. I was taught the boy watch your bad mouth and stop backbiting. Deserve a backhanded backslap with bastration for back talking. Should backtrack, grab your backpack and start walking. Brawny and burly, yet briskly breeze between battles and barricades blindly. God's been good, like brisk baby. I beseech and beg thee to bring these barren bare bones to bountiful brand new life, blessed with God's big brick armor and brilliant broadsword and bread right. A bizarre, beautiful beacon of bright light. Beloved, in the beginning I was begging bread. Now I boast in Christ about how I eat breakfast in my befitting bed. Best follow the bandmaster, not the bandwagon. Never bargain or barter with darker blackness, but I'll baptize you with bare verbs written in black like John the Baptist. My name is The Real Free. Tonight I'm going to be giving you guys what I call alliteration, spoken word. And in 2020, we had the unfortunate onset of the pandemic, so I wasn't able to really promote this amazing feat of a poetry book. My first ever published work that I have over there is called The Epic Poem Mastermind. It set the first ever world record for longest written alliteration. So I was rather pleased with that. But again, the whole world was shut down, so I didn't get a chance to share it the way I would have liked. But I've been pleased to travel and visit several schools, private schools throughout the state, sharing on alliterative workshops and creative writing. And so I hope that at the end, at some time throughout the evening, the rest of the time we have here, you all would visit my table. If for nothing else, leave me your autograph in my book that I have there. Leave me your kind words. I've had that book with me in Switzerland, France, England, everywhere I go, with words in all different languages from all different types of people. Excuse me while I execute, exercise, and exert with exhaustion my executive right to explicitly explain and exceedingly exalt my extreme God. You can expect me to expound and expand upon his excellency with expertise and exigency. No exaggeration. I'm excited but not excessive in exclaiming his exceptional nature with exorbitant and exotic diction. My example is Christ. God exchanged his exquisite son exactly for our existence so we exponentially can exist, not face execution, extermination, or exclusion from his extraordinary kingdom. He will expel and extinguish anguish, expedite healing, expose chance and extenuating circumstance or expedition. He is so expeditious. This is no experiment you are experiencing. Your excellence excels in this, an expert with extraterrestrial experience and no expiration, period. Explore and examine his excess, excite the masses, express an extensive gladness, no exceptions. He will exceed your expectations upon examination with one explanation. He is the explicit exhibit I present with excitement, my extreme God. I was told I had 10 minutes. I think I have time for just this one last piece. And besides, tonight is date night, and almost for 7 years married to my wife, I have not missed Tuesday evening date night. All right? So I have until 7 to be home. This is a piece that I actually, forgive me, haven't had dedicated the time to memorize, but for my certification work at Harvard University, we had to write an op-ed, and I chose to write on the subject of love. This is, love is not an emotion. Love is not an emotion. Well, what is love? Most etymological expeditions such as this begin with the employment of some notable acquaintances of mine, Webster and Oxford. I am sure you've heard of them, and although it would sound much more regal to add that they are men of few words, I am afraid the contrary is true. They are literally filled with them. Webster says love is a feeling of strong affection, and Oxford says love is an intense feeling. On any other given day, let it be far from me, but on this day, it is with equal measure, humility, and audacity I say to you, Webster and Oxford have it all wrong. Love is not a feeling or strong affection. Love is a decision. In fact, love is the greatest decision ever made. It is the greatest decision one can make in this very moment, and it will forever be the greatest decision one will be able to ever make in the future. Love is the highest thought. Love is the highest judgment. Love is not an emotion. Nature, science, and mathematics all support the claim that love is a decision. Let us reference nature. Love is no more an emotion than water is wet. No matter how silly it may sound, I assure you, water is not wet. I find it intriguing how we define a thing based solely on our individual encounters with it. Is water wet, or does water make things become wet? If I touch water, is it wet, or are my hands now wet? Wet is the term we use to describe water's side effects. Is love an emotion, or is love a decision? And the side effects of that decision are what we emotionally experience. Water is not wet, and love is not an emotion. Both philosophers and scientists have referenced the cognitive appraisal theory when defining emotion, positing that emotions are judgments about the degree in which specific situations meet our specific goals. Described plainly, you only experience what you call love or any approbating emotion when an encounter comforts or resolves a desire or problem. Purchase me a broom to sweep my hardwood floors and I am elated. Purchase me a broom when I have no place to sleep and the broom suddenly loses its appeal. Did the characteristics of the broom change, or is it simply worthless to one who is homeless? I have now considered its utility to arrive at my individual judgment. So science says emotions are judgments. If emotions are judgments and judgments are simply decisions, then love is a decision. This is mathematics' transitive property, explained with the expression if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Love is not an emotion. Love is a decision. To every mother who has experienced 9 months of pregnancy and given birth to a darling child, you know more than most just how much love is detached from how you feel, and directly germane to how you think and decide. Every mother who has given birth knows that their belly and waist being expanded does not feel good. The morning sickness does not feel good. The pain in your back or the uterus growing from the size of an orange to that of a watermelon does not feel good. The swollen feet do not feel good. Oh, and absolutely no one can deny the crown of that child's head breaking first light into a room filled with great anticipation does not feel good. In spite of not feeling too good for 9 months on account of a growing child, somehow a mother lays eyes on that child who has since caused discomfort and pain and loves them. I submit to you today that each and every loving mother had a resolute mind at the point of conception, had determined and decided that this child who is flesh of their flesh will they love. Let the world stand in awe of this magnificent feat. Love only in its infancy is vulnerability, but love in its mastery is invincibility. There are few things more powerful than a made-up mind or unwavering decision. Mark Twain, held as the father of American literature, said, "You are about as happy as you make up your mind to be." Happiness, a remnant of love, ready to be manifested if only you decide it. Love is not an emotion. Love is a decision. If God is love, then love walked among us in a display of mastery. Did love have a decision to make? He did, and he made the greatest decision and the highest judgment in spite of all the pain, mockery, and rejection from his people on the cross at Calvary. Love is not an emotion. Do not go through this life asking to be love. Seek out ways to become love. Be the greatest decision in the room. Choose love. Thank you.
So, like many fellow singer-songwriters and artists and writers and painters, we created a volume of work. Always created a volume of work during the pandemic, and I did too. And this song kind of relates to the pandemic in the sense that I just kind of sat around one day at the beginning of it all, and I was thinking about my trips on tour throughout the Midwest. And if you've ever driven along I-90 through the Rust Belt, like Gary, Indiana, out to Chicago, you'll see these massive factories that are just done and rusting. And I thought about how life had changed so quickly, so abruptly, and detrimentally, and how that was running in parallel with what we were experiencing at the same time. Life all of a sudden came to a stop, and it was detrimental to a lot of people. So I wrote this song about feeling that way, trying to make sense of it all. This is called Out of Touch. And I generally hate cliches for song lyrics. I don't know why I chose Out of Touch, but that's how I felt at the time. So here we go. Dust is in the field, the goats start passing by it. Slow motion scenery. Not long ago, this was a vivid animation for all American of dreams. Days aren't always kind, they burn through hesitation. Leaves you holding hollow years, and before you know, another winter's over, but the spring is never here. Out of time, it's just on the horizon. Out of luck, it's harder than it seems. Wouldn't say to try it. Out of touch is what I feel. Please listen. We practice our routines in daily preparation for unknown anomalies. And still believe in some goodness of a nation, rife with conspiracies. And now we're steeped in fear, unfortunate misfortune, when we're all just standing still. And I just want to work providing for the family. I wonder if I ever will again. Out of time, it's just on the horizon. Out of luck, it's harder than it seems. Out of work, I wouldn't say to try it. Out of touch is what I feel. Take so much for granted, I promise. Oh, I promise. No, I'll never take so much for granted again. Oh, again. lost on the horizon. Out of luck, it's harder than it seems. Out of luck, I wouldn't say to try it. Out of touch is what I feel. Please listen. Please listen. Please listen. Please listen. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Hello, I'm Michael Jefferson, and I'm going to be reading a few poems. This first poem was written in the days following my brother's suicide. Since then, there's a poem by Hanif Abdurraqib who's been it's been stuck in my head since then. It reads, "When a smiling, joyful black person says they're doing all right, I imagine it's because they know good may be too close to the sun. I imagine it's because they've seen things burn." This poem is titled, "Any Minute Now, Something Will Happen." And I think it's fair to say I've seen enough of it burn. Malcolm said, one day he was home and then he wasn't. I was slow on the uptake. I am picking it up now. He meant, well, physically. Every kind of good thing just wilted in a drought rot, devastating landscapes, his body a dust bowl. I am feeling so Carole King to Cole Porter. Back against an ocean, ignoring a symphony of goals, panicked warning of so it goes, of rows of teeth ascending like the sun. In which part of this novel do I turn to me and say to me, we must cultivate our garden, and I nod and need the dirt? For this next piece, I'd just like to thank my late memoir instructor who recently passed, Caroline Rosenstone. She always encouraged us to explore the absurd. The Aquanaut. I read somewhere that whales have a developed part of their brain that emphasizes an obligation to community. Before they went into the ocean, whales had 4 feet. What if they were the giants in our storybooks? What if blue whales were these skyscraping things that lumbered through trees and sent our animal ancestors running? It must have gotten tiring, being able to see everything, being able to feel everything, like some relative beside you, ill and dying. My cousin found our grandmother dead in her sleep. He lay beside her for hours, and when they pulled him from the bed, he sat in my kitchen the whole morning, crying. What if the whales we know came to be because one of them got sick and fell into the ocean, and its pod decided to lie there with it until it found peace? And over time, the tide pulled them in, and their faces, and their bodies, and their bones became sleek. What if the whales that beach themselves share their ancestors' memories? What if beaching themselves is their attempt at walking? What if they miss the sun and their fur, and for baleen whales their teeth? What if they miss pulling up flowers to see how much butter they must eat? What if their dialogue was bunched in verses? Birds chirp melodies while humpbacks sing, oral histories of cataclysms and dinosaurs melting. Whales must have had some notion of gravity, how it holds you down, like someone you tried to save from drowning. These next two poems I'd like to dedicate to Natalie Wood's performance in Splendor in the Grass. I don't know if you're all familiar with it, but when I get upset, I become Deanie Loomis. Apparently, she's dating now. And all of it is nothing when you think about it, though. Getting paid to watch Troy. Sky Father, can you hear my cupidity to live longer than this sun? Hellenistic memes for Hellenistic teens shared, lion like Achilles dragging Hector to the shore. Caption in bold, I will not take my rage out on others. So I'm shouting and I'm punching steering wheel of my car. I am raw and feeling violent, in the gravity of trees, poles, swivel of the wheel, how it is, in the end, my decision, I know. So that angers me. Rage in me, Vesuvius as fuck. Soot-soaking aftermaths of city streets we once strolled, malefic as necropolis uprooted for a home. I need to vanish from this movie still. Leave all of this breathless on the cutting room floor. O Jove, O Muse, slit her name from my throat. This last poem is titled, What's the Point? You've got to take what comes. See, one time I met someone in a dim bar, wing-tipped pretty eyes I believed I belonged in. Saw myself happily across from her as she pulls at my arm to take a picture of the orca beneath an iceberg. I like to think eventually it discovers fresh air. Sent the picture to her sister, think I'd love to meet her sister, just to imitate what it takes to belong in her orbit, a tidal-locked full moon. She says, like an oracle, I'll be flying back and forth between one mutually exclusive thing and another for the rest of my days. I say, are you quoting Plath? Because we can go to the jeweler to pick out your damn ring. Later in the Uber, I say to the Uber, can you play that song from Hercules? I won't say I'm in love. I go and say I'm in love 2 years too late, exhausted by jokes we'd make of a dreamed-up family, our sick in the head and beautiful kids. Trilingual and so talented, Disney would come knocking with several scripts in hand. Soliloquies are fever dreams. Eventually, tomorrow and tomorrow bring you crashing from the sun. Thank you.
So, this will come out, won't it? It will. What an exaltation of words and sounds in song and spoken. Wow. This is a fine place to be on a summer evening. It is. So thank you, Denise. Thank you for the whole event. It's wonderful to be here. I'm going to tell a story, but I did want to tell you because I think it's one of the most fun things I've heard in forever. You know head, shoulders, knees, and toes you do with kids when they're little? Well, the senior version of it is glasses, wallet, keys, and phone, keys and phone. Glasses, wallet, keys, and phone, keys and phone. If you forget, you will come right back home. So, glasses, wallet, keys, and phone, keys and phone. I just thought that was the best thing. I wish I could give somebody credit. A friend passed it on to me, but it's like, because today when I left the house, what did I forget? 2 of those items. We won't go any further. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for all of this. This is a personal story, and I'm that's new since the pandemic for me to write a personal story. My husband, Richard, loves the intimacy of talking in our car. The two of us both enjoy going out on long drives, on back roads. Eventually we'll stop, we'll get a cup of coffee and park and talk, sometimes about marital issues, but most often and most sweetly when we just fall into reverie together and our conversation just meanders. But I don't think I would have become his wife. I might not even have become his girl if I hadn't taken a ride 42 years earlier with a stranger in North Carolina. I have a lot of personal fears, which makes it all the more remarkable that I regularly, as a storyteller, fly into a strange city and get into a stranger's car. I prefer being picked up by a woman. I feel safer, so I'm more comfortable. But when I emerged from baggage claim, there were only men standing there in those droopy black suits, holding pieces of torn cardboard with names scrawled on them. My name wasn't on any of those pieces of cardboard. And then a man walked in just normal clothing, and he had a sign that had my name on it. So I tried to catch his eye, and I smiled and nodded. He didn't smile. He barely moved his head, and my sense of apprehension just ticked up. I followed him out to what I thought would be his car. My God, it wasn't a car. It was a pickup truck with a gun rack. And my wariness increased exponentially. I struggled into the truck with my high heels and my oversized purse for travel, and when I got in the car, I hugged the door and clasped the handle in my hand so that I could escape. But who was I kidding? Where was I going to escape? I mean, here I was in a state where I had never been, with a stranger riding on unfamiliar roads in an unfamiliar place in a rural area. And this man did not join me in one of those kind of two-step dances that we do when we meet each other, like, tell me about yourself. No. He launched into a political diatribe, and I did not share his political feelings. And as suffocating as his opinions were, it was even worse that he somehow thought they were unassailable. And I sat there seething and trying to make my face neutral with all those childhood feelings that you don't make men angry. So I could hear the voices. Be nice. Smile. Accommodate. And out of nowhere, he just said to me, why did I have on short breeches? Well, some of you are old enough. I had on pedal pushers. Remember pedal pushers? Today they'd be called capri pants, but I ignored his conversation about what I was wearing and even his politics. Here was an opportunity to start a conversation. So I remarked on how beautiful the countryside was. And really, North Carolina in the spring is beautiful. Then I asked, because I hadn't given up the idea of getting out of that truck, where exactly are we? And where's the nearest town? Well, he answered me in monosyllables and then began spewing his opinions again. And I sat there seething. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got a Greek chorus inside my head. I call them me, myself, and I. You know, there's the starving 4-year-old who's always needy. There's the 9-year-old who's panic-stricken about making sense out of life. And then there's a disaffected teenager. They argue and sometimes talk together vociferously. And one of them hissed, "Why do men have all the power?" And a voice I had never heard before asked, "Do they?" Well, who was that? Think about it, Birch. If a guy's edgy, you act uptight. If a guy's uptight, you act edgy. Why are you surprised he sensed your opposition? But one of the voices inside is going, wait a minute. What? You're saying that we have power? Yes. If you can sense how to make a man uncomfortable, you can do that. Or you could not do that. Wow. Face it, Birch, this guy is not your father. Now, my mother raised me with 2 important lessons about men. The first was, make sure you marry a man who dances. And the other was, honey girl, all men are babies. Of course, your life is meaningless without them, so you have to learn to jolly them along. Well, wrong, Mother. I didn't need to jolly this guy along. And maybe I didn't need to confront him or oppose him. And my breathing changed. I mean, if I am not physically in danger, then my life doesn't depend on a man's approval or opinion. My face changed and I let go of the handle of the car and I turned a little towards this man, but he was just tapping the steering wheel and going on. He didn't notice that the air had changed. I noticed. He got me to where I was going safely enough. I never saw him again, but my behavior towards men began to change that day in that truck. And I met Richie 2 years later. And we married another 2 years after that. Is it easy being married? Well, we know. No, it's a decision, isn't it? A decision and another and another. Yes. It is not easy. Sometimes it just feels like our marriage is nothing but a landmine of explosions that come out of nowhere over important things, like how big an onion should be when it's put into a stew, about the world and what should be done in this country or that country or here in this country and that neighborhood. Oh, we can really get going on differences. But Richie and I try to right-size our feelings towards one another. We try to focus on each other's good qualities. And recently we've been thinking about this concept of living as allies. Living as allies is life-changing. Yes, of course, your friends, your lovers, your partners, but allies going out into the world together. It's made me rethink things so that if I am really furious with my husband, I stop And I think, okay, Carol, how would an ally ask, what the fuck are you doing? You see, and then I don't say that. I learned to say, I am angry, not you made me angry on purpose. But sometimes, you can just get into an argument that just spins and spins. So we have found it often helps to change the scenery. Just go out and get in the car, go for a drive, have a moratorium on all that anger. And sometimes we stop, we get a cup of coffee, and we fall into a conversation as marital partners or even as allies, but I like it best when we just fall into a conversation like friends. The kind of friends I hope we always will be. Thank you so much.
So many good words. I'm getting all the feels from everybody. So I decided to end on a more positive note. I was going to play something serious, but I'll play something that I think is happy. As soon as the big bad motorcycles go by. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this event. You could have gone anywhere else on a Tuesday night, but you chose to come here, and we appreciate that. Everybody here appreciates that. So thank you. You can put your hands there. Not for me, for you. Thank you. Thank you, Denise and the entire staff, for being so cool, so kind. Often the unseen, unspoken heroes behind events like this. I like to make sure they get some love as well. So I had a friend who was going through a little bit of a rough time 6 or 7 years ago, and I decided to write a song about it. Not necessarily specifically about him, but about counting your blessings and realizing who the good people are in your life. And this is what I came up with. This is a song called The Real Ones. You wanted was a lie. After all this time, walls and walls that fill your head, circling around you spin. When daylight comes, there's a new way to begin. Oh, for all the times that you tried, they won't let you down. You can tell who the real ones are. They won't let you down. Let go of hesitation when you're absolute love is on your side. I swear that you'll be fine. And I know it's not that easy, and it damn well feels insane when you have to start yourself over again. Oh, for all the times that you tried, you can tell who the real ones are. down. You can tell who the real ones are, they won't let you down. You can tell who the real ones are, they won't let you down. Oh, you can tell who the real ones are, they won't let you down.
Thank you so much, everybody. Spread the peace and love, not the germs.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's give another hand to Seth, the Real Free, Laconia, Carol, and Michael. Thank you so much.